All right, let's stick with the quarterback theme, but move on to the draft guys. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the big four guys. We've kind of done that to death. We talked about a lot about them. I want to talk about the next group of quarterbacks. I want to start with Hendon Hooker, though, because if you were listening to Chris Collinsworth's mock draft yesterday, he had probably the single two most, I don't want to use the term crazy because he listens to the show, bold, let's call them. Bold and unique draft picks of any first-round mock draft I've heard. So he had a consensus fifth or sixth round safety going in the first round to the Bengals, who he thinks is better than Brian Branch. It's a hell of a take. And then he had the one that really caught fire yesterday from Chiefs fans, Hendon Hooker from Tennessee going to the Kansas City Chiefs at number 31 overall. And obviously Chiefs fans hated that. The more I think about it, the more I think you can construct a case for it. Now, you have to sort of take a few, let's take a few things as read. Like, independent of what you think of Hendon Hooker as a quarterback, right? Let's assume for a minute he belongs in that general area, which I disagree with. I know you disagree with as well. But if you assume that Hendon Hooker is a first-round type of quarterback based off his tools, that you can make a pretty good argument that, like, drafting essentially an elite backup quarterback is good business for a team like Kansas City. Like, Chris's logic of what's the worst thing that can happen to Kansas City right now is they lose Mahomes for like 4 or 5 games, and all of a sudden they're way behind the 8 ball, versus the other contenders, and they're potentially in trouble. Like, if you could be assured that Hendon Hooker was going to become, say, the best backup quarterback in the NFL, getting the best backup quarterback in the NFL on a dirt cheap contract for 4 years, then being able to pick up the fifth-year option and trade him away for probably what you got, what it cost you to get him, if he's good, that's actually fine. That's good. Like, that's probably better. Like, would that be more or less valuable to them than, let's say, George Karlaftis' current career trajectory, which is like, he's going to play a lot, he's going to get some pressure, doesn't look like he's making a tremendous amount of impact, he's going to get a lot of cleanup pressures. Like, the backup quarterback is probably more valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with it. It's not probable, but it's not impossible to think of, right? I mean, we've seen some crazy stuff happen like that.
I mean, that to me is less crazy than, like, the Patriots drafting Cole Strange last year.
I don't know about that. We've seen New England kind of do their own thing for a while.
Yeah, but separate from the fact that it's New England, so of course they did something weird. Like, the idea of drafting like a consensus third-round guard in the first round is, I think, more crazy than taking a guy who's supposed to go in the first round but will be a backup for you because you already have like a cast iron Hall of Fame starter.
Yeah, I think there's a real chance Hendon Hooker could go 31. I just don't think it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs, making the call and turning in the card.
Right.
You can get a few different teams that could trade back in, to get that fifth year. But, to your point, if they did, let's say that does happen. I mean, you look at the way he operated Josh Heupel's offense at Tennessee. I mean, he's super consistent, right? He operated it as it was designed. Was it like a college offense, very gimmicky? Just not anything he's going to see in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, it didn't help him in that regard. Like, we have no idea if he can actually play quarterback at the NFL level. But with this system, couldn't have been better. You know what I mean? So, maybe that's the appeal. He's a good athlete. I guess the problem I have with the entire thing is you look at all these quarterbacks and you can all pick like one big strength and weakness. And, of course, Bryce Young, it's the size. You look at Anthony Richardson, it's the accuracy. Will Levis, the lack of, true high-level throws, those big-time throws. Didn't really see a lot of them, the regression from last year. With Hendon Hooker, you could pick any because he's got like 5 where you could make a reasonable case against him. He's old, 25 years old. He's hurt, college system, pocket presence. I mean, all these things really add up. And do you really want to invest in that in the first round? I mean that's the whole thing. I think he is going to go round 1. That's why I'm not too big on taking Hendon Hooker early, but if you're drafting him with the intentions of being a backup, it's all about him operating the offense that he was in just as consistent and efficient as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make clear before, there's a social clip of me saying that the Chiefs should draft Hendon Hooker 31. I agree with Chris. I don't think Hendon Hooker is a first-round quarterback. I don't think he should be. I think there's too much unknown about his tape because of that offense. I don't see how you can project that as a first-round guy I'm just saying the idea of an elite team who has a great quarterback drafting a backup quarterback at the back end of the first round, I don't think is as crazy as people are making it out to be. I actually think that is potentially not a bad idea. Like, we've seen the value of the position is so much. And if the Chiefs lose Mahomes for half a dozen games, what, like, Blaine Gabbert is going to survive for 6 games? Are you really comfortable with that? Like, you need something. And if Hooker can be that guy, it's absolutely worth that kind of draft pick. But what's interesting to me, I've talked about my concerns about him. You have the most negative view of Hendon Hooker, I think, of anybody I've heard, because my problem is essentially that offense and the unknown between that and an NFL offense. I just don't see how you can project it. But you actually have a lot of problems with his on-field play in that offense.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, Tennessee had one of the most explosive offenses in college football. I mean, like I said, and I mean it, he operated that as it was designed, nearly perfect, took care of the football. I mean, obviously only 2 picks. The advanced data matches that 5 turnover-worthy plays for the year, and I don't care what kind of offense you're running.
Like
doing
a
that.
1-point-something% turnover-worthy play rate, which is better than Bryce Young's, which is 2%, which I've been talking up as a good thing over the last 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But at the same time, you have to look at, okay, is the way he plays the game, can that translate, right? And the biggest issue I have is the pocket presence thing. I mean, you're converting pressure to sacks 29% of the time. That's bad. I mean, that's very concerning. I mean, I'm talking with Ben Lindsay, he's upstairs right now all the time, and we're breaking down these quarterbacks, and he's saying, told me a good stat, like only 50% of his pressure dropbacks results in a throw. That's not sustainable at the NFL level.
Right.
And then you add in everything else I mentioned with, age, injury, and the unknown with this college system. It's like, you look at his receiver, Jalen Hyatt, right? I mean, obviously, he's got speed. We know that. He burned defenses. He had some incredible performances this year for Tennessee, but we don't know if he can be a true receiver at the NFL level. That being said, I would be more confident in trying to, what Jalen Hyatt can do, his floor, he can still be an explosive deep threat, right? And so for that, I'm still fine taking him somewhat early, maybe not first round, but still, you see something there. With Hendon Hooker, I mean, there's just so many ways that you see him play the game that you just don't know if it translates. I mean, again, most of his throws were like he was at his pro day. You know what I mean? Because it was just air.
Right.
People were wide open.
That's what
Nobody
I'm saying,
can defend that super spreader offense. The way they're stacking these guys, you got to play man coverage.
Yeah.
Not a lot of these college corners can play man coverage, and so it makes it very difficult.
That's what I was saying, that you almost learn as much from like the combine position drills as you do watching Tennessee offense tape for Hooker and Jalen Hyatt. Like, it's a complete abstraction what you're trying to ask him to do. It's a good point though that you can. I mean, even if Jalen Hyatt can do nothing else, there's a role for that in the NFL. You can create that wide receiver role within an offense, albeit it's limiting, but you can't create that for a quarterback. If all Hendon Hooker can do is operate that Tennessee offense to a really high level, he can't play in the NFL. Like, there's no way you can create a similar effect in the league, because NFL defenses are different, NFL fields are different. You can't create that. So if that's the limit of what he can achieve, you're screwed. Like, he can't play. That's different to Jalen Hyatt, where if that's the limit he can do, he can still play in the league, and actually he can still be quite valuable in terms of like a designated deep threat, even if you have to keep him away from press coverage and stacked alignments and all that kind of thing. That's still useful. It's not for the quarterback if he can't play.
100%. And I mean, I think in this class too, so the whole theory of, could Kansas City take a quarterback to be a good backup? I don't hate it, but I think in this year's class, I kind of do, because I think there's a lot of good candidates to be a quality backup in the NFL in this class. Clayton Tune, Stetson Bennett, Tanner McKee. I mean, I think there's some guys that could be a viable option as a backup quarterback. Could come in, win some ball games. Stetson Bennett, I love. He's spunky. He comes in, he's tough. He's also smart as hell. People don't give him credit for that. I mean, the way he was executing that Georgia offense.
I knew before watching him that I was going to like his tape. Like, just from seeing a couple of Georgia games, I was like, I'm going to like that guy, and I don't want to. And I went through his tape, and it's like, God damn, I really did like his tape. Like, we were talking before we went on air, and it's like, the top 4 guys that we're talking about are probably the only 4 that have starter potential. Maybe Hendon Hooker, depending on like that. Bridging that gap of offense is just such an unknown. It could go anywhere from total disaster, can't play, to, yeah, he's a good starter. So 5, I guess.